justice for Enrique Roman Martinez. LULAC joins hands with the American Indian Movement, Justice X, Coalition for Community Control, La Raza Unida Party, No Mas Movement, the Los Angeles community. In a few short moments, you will be hearing from Jose Barrera, California LULAC State Director, Dustin Collier, family attorney for Enrique Roman Martinez, as well as Griselda, sister of Enrique Roman Martinez, and his mother, Maria. You will also be hearing today from community members, Mollie Bell from the Community Control over the Police, as well as Ernesto Alaya from Raza Unida, and Alex Villapando, Community Control over the Police. I will now be handing the mic over to Jose Barrera, California LULAC State Director. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jose Barrera. I'm the State Director for California LULAC, or the League of United Latin American Citizens. Today we reach a milestone. It's been over 2 years since we've heard from Enrique Roman Martinez. We offer our condolences to the family, the sisters, the mother, and the rest of the Martinez family for their sacrifice, for their sadness, for the pain that they're going through. We cannot imagine what they're going through. But we're here to make a comment together, and we're here to find the truth. LULAC has been a part of this fight since the very beginning, and we will not let this end right now. We have a message from our LULAC National President, Mr. Domingo Garcia. Domingo has been monitoring the development of this case through National LULAC, through the Committee of Military and Veterans Affairs. With this development in the Army, he asked that the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI relieve the Army of any further efforts to find the truth and hold accountable all those who were involved in this horrendous murder. Here, I rise and call the Department of Justice and the FBI to take full charge and control over the investigation into the murder of this community's son, this community's brother, Enrique Roman Martinez. The Army has led in this investigation, and they have proven an inability to get this job done correctly. I also call on the Army so they cannot object to the Department of Justice and the FBI taking charge of this case. There is no place for Army's pride and ownership over this investigation or further control to investigative matters such as this. We need independent and fresh eyes. Thank you for coming today. We'll hear from other community members, but after me, we'll call on attorney Dustin Collier.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you to LULAC for organizing this event. Thank you to all the members of the community for coming out and showing their support for this family. In May of 2020, Army Specialist Enrique Roman Martinez went on a camping trip with 7 of his fellow soldiers, and he never came back. A week later, his severed head washed ashore. And here we are, nearly 2 years later, and we have no more answers than we began with, and that is unacceptable. When our soldiers volunteer to risk their lives, sacrifice their freedoms to protect ours, the least we can do is protect them when they're here, on the homeland, at our own base. The least we can do is demand answers when one of them goes missing and ends up dead. The Army's handling of this investigation has been extraordinarily disappointing. But the last straw for us, the family, and me as their attorney, was finding out from the Rolling Stone magazine that they had pressed charges against the 7 suspects involved. Not homicide charges, mind you, lesser charges for which they will serve very little, if any, jail time. They told us for a year, in weekly briefings they held with myself and with Griselda, that they were going to bring these lesser charges against these individuals and use it to leverage a confession on the homicide. Then they told us in August, out of nowhere, that they were no longer going to do that. They were going to close the file, deem it a cold case, and conduct no further investigation of any kind. Bring no charges of any kind. As you might imagine, the family was devastated. And a month later, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, a month later, Griselda's father passed away, presumably from the grief of finding out that no one would ever get to the bottom of who killed his son. 3 months later, we find out from the press that they lied to us. The Army lied to us. And they had, in fact, pressed charges against these individuals just 3 weeks after telling us they were not going to do so. I received a phone call last week from CID prosecutor, that's Criminal Investigation Division prosecutor, Cal Walters, Major Cal Walters. And Major Walters said to me that he was under the impression we weren't interested in any charges other than homicide, that we wouldn't want to know that they pressed any charges. And I told him what I thought of that, and I got off the phone with him. But the fact is, we've lost all confidence in the Army to investigate itself. And it never made sense that they were investigating them in the first place. The crime didn't occur on base. It occurred at a national park. It's clearly DOJ jurisdiction. It clearly should be in the FBI's hands, where they have the expertise and the resources to conduct a proper homicide investigation. And more importantly, they have the will to do so. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Griselda. Let her say something.
Hi, everybody. Sorry if you can't see me. I'll try to move over this way a little bit. Hi, my name is Griselda Martinez. I'm Enrique Roman's older sister. And this has been really, really difficult for me and my family. Growing up here in the United States, you're taught the Star-Spangled Banner. You're taught how we fought for our freedom and how we continue to do so every day. And being in the Army is an honor, right? You grow up saying the national anthem. You see it. It's in the opening for every major sport. It's the land of the free, but it's not the land of the just. That is for sure. The thing that I think hurts the most is when the Army recruiters came to my home when my brother was only 17 years old and promised my mother that the way my brother is leaving, all 100% of his body, every little piece of him, every hair on him, the way that he's leaving is how he's going to come back. And 3.5 years later, my brother's severed head is the only thing we get back. That's it. Nothing else. No final goodbye, no nothing. And you think that the Army would do anything they can. This was one of their own, and from what they told me, one of the ones that worked the hardest, that worked the weekends, that went to extremes to make sure his work is done. Yet there's no murder convictions. They waited such a long time before they dove, before they even did anything really. And here me and my mom are just by their mercy, just hoping that they would do the right thing and just figure out what happened. There was only those 7 people with my brother. We know it wasn't suicide. Both autopsy reports, even the one that the Army did itself, said that this was not done by a boat propeller or any water, any ocean, nothing. It had to have been done by an instrument, but it remains inconclusive which instrument, because they don't have the whole body. How am I supposed to go to someone and tell them that we live in a great country, that we live in a country that is just? Because we don't. Because my brother, who gave his all, who gave 3 years of his life serving the country, was butchered just like a pig. And even now, 2 years later, we're still here fighting for answers. Why is it that I've gotten more information from reporters than I have them? Why? Why is it that I've been the one searching for answers, finding out who these people are? Why my brother went on this trip? Like, why? Why is it me? Why? I shouldn't have to be doing this. I shouldn't have to have faith in the Army, but I just don't. With everything that I've experienced, I don't, They told me that the case was closed, that it was cold, there was nothing else they could do. They told me there was know? You know? How am I supposed to have any faith in them? How am I supposed to trust that they're doing what's best for me? For really anybody? You know? To them, my brother's just another one, you know? Who cares? Oh well, you know? It shouldn't be that way at all. My brother gave so much of his life to serve this country. The least they could have done is given us answers that they couldn't send him back home. I am thankful that they are making these charges, even if they're not murder charges, but I won't be happy. And I won't rest until I find out who did this to my brother and why. And I will not rest until they're in jail.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I won't stop. And it doesn't matter how much I have to go to whatever street corner or go to whatever congressman, whatever media outlet, I will keep fighting for my brother. Because he would have done the same for me, for Vanessa Guillen, for any soldier. He would have done the same thing. So here I am in my brother's place, fighting for justice for him and for everyone else. And I could only imagine that not just his case, but so many others will bring about reform to the Army criminal system, which is what everybody overlooks. Remember, a lot of people have kids in the Army. Look at your kids. Look at them. And look at my family. Look at how hard we had to fight. For whatever measures come out, vote for them. We have to change the system. We have to do it together. Thank you, everybody, for supporting me and my family today. Thank you, LULAC, for everything you've done for my family. I can only imagine what else you have in store, and I will 100% always support it. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today and listening to my family's story. Not only that, for supporting us and being here today.
¿Nos puedes decir algo en español, por favor?
Okay. So, yo estoy aquí hoy hablando por mi familia, por mi hermano, más que nada busco justicia para mi hermano. Él fue alguien tan cariñoso, tan amoroso, tan justo, tan noble, que yo estoy aquí. Él fue, las personas que fueron a agarrar a mi hermano para hablarme, fueron a mi casa, hablaron con mi madre y le prometieron a mi madre que como lo ven hoy, cada pelo, cada dedo, todo lo que tiene mi hermano, se lo llevan, así se lo van a regresar. Tres y medio años después, regresaron solamente la cabeza de mi hermano. Y sin justicia. Yo tenía mucha fe que el Army me iba a ayudar a mí y mi familia. Desde que era niña aquí creciendo en Estados Unidos, me enseñaron las canciones de América, que era el estado de libertad y de justicia, pero no es eso, ellos no son justos. Yo estoy peleando bien fuerte para mi hermano y todo lo que yo he sufrido no fue por el Army, fue porque fue un reportero que me hizo el comentario, o unos amigos. Yo lo tendría que buscar yo misma. No sé por qué el Army, que hablan tanto de que van a las casas de las personas y prometen tanto, no vienen con la promesa que si alguien mata a mi hermano, me iban a decir quién y por qué. Mi hermano fue una persona tan buena. Y yo nunca voy a parar de pelear por mi hermano, porque él se lo merece, porque Enrique hubiera estado aquí hoy peleando por cada uno, por Vanessa Guillen o cualquier otro soldado afuera que ha tenido algo injusto pasárselo a él. Yo nunca voy a parar de pelear por mi hermano. Puede ser lo que yo tengo que hacer, que si es gritar en una calle, gritar en una montaña, ir a un reportero, a otro, lo que tenga que hacer, pero yo voy a ganar justicia para mi hermano. Y hoy le doy muchas gracias a LULAC, que me han ayudado tanto con todo esto. Y también mi abogado, Dustin Collier, que no lo había mencionado before, pero sí, a Dustin también, y a todos que han a mi comunidad que han venido juntos, que están aquí hoy, que me han ayudado a expresarme y salir con la historia. Y muchas gracias a todos, de verdad, con todo mi corazón, yo les doy gracias. Lo que tenemos que hacer es empezar cuando, ojalá que en el caso de mi hermano, en el caso de Vanessa y de cualquier otro soldado, pueda hacer reforma en justicia criminal del Army. Eso es lo que podemos hacer y que siempre peleemos por reforma. Y nomás les pido a todos que ayuden a mí y mi familia y que también votan por esas cosas, que pongan atención, porque todos tienen hijos en el Army. Vean a mí y mi familia, vean a nosotros. No quieren estar en la misma posición que yo y mi mamá, que estamos aquí afuera peleando por justicia. Tengan atención. Votan para reforma también. Que sí va a venir reforma. Es lo que necesitamos. Muchas gracias por todos que están aquí, por enseñarnos apoyo. Gracias. Y ahora un poquito de mi madre. María Martínez va a hablar hoy.
Buenos días, mi nombre es María Guadalupe Martínez. Soy la mamá de Enrique Roman. Les agradezco al estar aquí apoyándome para que todos sepan la historia de mi hijo. Es muy doloroso perder a un hijo. Cuando tu hijo va a luchar por el país, por su país. Cuando se fue mi hijo, yo no quería que se fuera, pero él es necio que se quería ir. Y cuando vinieron los soldados por representación para poderse llevar a mi hijo, ellos me prometieron que lo iban a cuidar. Y no fue así. Yo confié demasiado en ellos. Yo me sentía orgullosa de que mi hijo había ido al Army. Pero nunca uno espera que ya no va a regresar. Mi hijo era muy buena gente. No sé qué pasó. Supuestamente se fue con 7 amigos. ¿Y qué pasó? No saben ellos. Supuestamente, entre comillas. No lo acepto, no lo asimilo, que mi hijo ya no está. Y día tras día y noche tras noche me paro en la ventana pensando que va a venir mi hijo. En las noches me pongo a pensar que va a llegar por atrás y que me va a decir, me estuve escondiendo. Pero no, mi hijo ya está muerto. Y los 7 compañeros están libres, gozando, disfrutando. Entonces yo me pongo a pensar, las mamás de esos 7 compañeros no sienten el dolor que yo siento. Y la desesperación de no saber qué fue lo que pasó y por qué. Y nada más de saber que lo único que me entregaron fue la cabeza de mi hijo. Y ni eso me dieron la oportunidad de verlo. Porque yo quería verlo, pero ellos decían que no, porque la cabeza estaba muy destruida. Precisamente por eso, a veces me pongo a pensar, ¿estará muerto mi hijo o no? ¿Estará muerto o no? ¿Lo tienen escondido o qué pasó? Porque yo no lo vi. No me dieron la oportunidad de verlo y de decirle, hijo, te quiero, te amo, eras bien consentido. Y es feo porque estás todo el tiempo si lo mataron o no, porque yo no lo vi. Ni su cuerpo sé a dónde está. Ya van a ser 2 años que mi hijo lo mataron y cruelmente. Yo le pido a los 7 muchachos, a los 7 supuestamente amigos de mi hijo que hablen. Si son culpables, ok, mire, fue un accidente y pasó esto y nos dio miedo y hicimos esto con él. Pero que tengan un poquito de piedad de este dolor que yo siento y mi familia, sus hermanas, que nosotros lo esperábamos con ansia porque él ya iba a salir del Army. 3 meses le faltaban para que estuviera con nosotros. Ahora, si sabían por qué se fueron a la isla, por qué se fueron a acampar, si sabían que iba a haber diluvio, ¿por qué tanta necesidad de irse, de llevárselo? Porque mi hijo no quería ir y se lo llevaron a fuerza, supuestamente para pagar menos para el transporte de los carros a la isla. Y que ni tiempo le dieron a mi hijo de gozar sábado, domingo. En ese momento lo mataron. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué hicieron eso? Porque ya el sábado iba a haber más gente, más público, y no iban a poder matarlo. ¿A quién se le ocurre ir supuestamente a una isla donde es mar? Iba a llover, iba a haber tormenta. Si yo hubiera organizado ese viaje, ese campamento, con mis compañeros le hubiera dicho, no vamos porque va a llover. Pero se fueron. ¿Por qué? Porque ya lo tenían planeado. Porque no le dieron tiempo a mi hijo. Mi hijo iba con una ilusión para ir a acampar, pero ellos no, ya lo tenían planeado. Y según no saben ellos qué pasó, según dicen que él se suicidó, sí, seguramente mi hijo se cortó la cabeza. Yo les pido a todos que me apoyen para que tenga justicia mi hijo, que no quede en un archivo más de que no hubo evidencia ni se encontró nada, de que no sea de unos más. Todos, no nada más mi hijo, lo mataron. Hay muchos soldados más, tanto como acoso sexual para las mujeres. No nada más fue Vanessa, hay muchas más también. Y así también como asesinatos, también mi hijo y otros soldados más. Y por todos ellos pido justicia. Justicia para todos los soldados. No nada más mi hijo. Todos se merecen encontrar la verdad y una justicia. Y gracias a todos ustedes. Gracias, de verdad. Justicia por el hijo nomás. Justicia por todos los soldados que han sido cruelmente matados. Gracias a todos ustedes. Gracias.
First of all, we're here to give voice from the community. You know, the community gave voice when George Floyd was killed. The community gave voice for Vanessa Gilliam. We're here to give voice to Enrique Martinez. Am I right or wrong, fellas? Yeah. Am I right or wrong? Right. We're here to give voice. Can you imagine being camping with your army buddies? They're there with you. And then he leaves without his glasses on. Griselda, you said that he was almost blind when he didn't have on his glasses. And then nobody knows what happened to him. Nobody saw what happened to him. But a whole week later, his head surfaced. His head. do you know what some of the Army people said? He was suicidal. It is hard to cut off your head and be suicidal. We need an investigation. This family, I put down just a couple of notes because I'm not just speaking for me. My name is Mollie Bell and I'm straight out of Compton. We are forced to, the family, Mama Martinez, we know that you're forced to relive his nightmare without closure. Forced to live in the absence of his truth and justice. Forced to watch Enrique's murderers go free. Did you hear that I said? His murderers have gone free. He's forced to wonder, what happened to my baby that night? What happened to him? Who did this to him? And they have to live like that? And they're forced to be without life, his vibrant life that was stolen. Enrique and others, we miss them. A whole year and more, no justice.
No peace.
No justice?
No peace.
There's not going to be any justice as long as there's no peace. The family, they're forced to go through this. They're forced to live through this. Now I'm speaking for the community. Let me see, who do we have here from Raza? Raza here?
Here.
Coalition for Community Control of the Police here?
Yeah.
LULAC here? Yeah. We're here, and we're speaking for the community. If we don't stand for him, who will? My brother was killed in Vietnam. He had a hero service, but Enrique hasn't had that. The family hasn't had no peace. We don't know what happened. Do you hear, media? Will you help to tell our story? Because Enrique has no voice right now. Mama Martinez, and that's what they call her, Mama Martinez. She stood there, strong voice, spoke out, said what was happening, and let us know what it was. But if we don't get any justice, there will be no what? Peace. There will be no what? Peace. And like you may recognize, I don't speak Spanish, didn't understand a word that she said, but I have a heart. How many of you felt her heart? How many of you felt her heart if you didn't know the word? She has some of the best lawyers that's going to take care of this, but we, the community, are going to stand. And so I'm closing by saying that we stand for the family, we stand behind them, we stand in front of them, we stand with them, and as long as there is no justice, there will be no peace. And we are all in agreement with that. Say Ashe. 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 All right, now close. I got to do my regular closing. All you prayer warriors out there, you know what you've got to do. You've got to keep fasting. You've got to keep praying because the struggle continues. But always, to God be the glory. Now, let's hear from LaRusa and Raza and Alex.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ernesto Alaya, soy el chairman del partido de la Raza Unida y estamos aquí con la familia de Enrique Roman Martinez, ¿verdad? Queremos recordarles de que la historia de Enrique es una historia que nosotros como pueblo hemos estado sufriendo por cientos de años y el gobierno de los Estados Unidos debería de tener vergüenza que se lleva a nuestros jóvenes brillantes, heroicos, y los usa y cuando ya no los quieren ni les importa. ¿Cómo es posible que un joven como Enrique se lo llevaron con todos los sueños que tenía y luego dicen que no saben qué le pasó ni reportaron que lo mataron? ¿Cómo es posible eso? ¿Cómo es posible que el gobierno de los Estados Unidos se lleva a nuestros jóvenes aquí de nuestra tierra y nos trata de esta manera, sin respeto, sin humanidad? Mi papá, mi abuelo también eran veteranos del ejército y ellos también sufrieron mucha discriminación. Entonces esto no es nada nuevo Y estamos aquí con la familia de Enrique y quiero que lo entiendan, que estamos con ustedes como familia, como raza, unidos, como un pueblo. Una violación a uno es una violación a todos. Y eso es lo que tenemos que entender, raza. Mi gente, tenemos que entender eso. Enrique pudo haber sido mi hermanito, mi sobrino, mi amigo. Pudo haber sido de mi familia inmediata, pero ¿saben qué? Sí es de mi familia. Y ustedes son de mi familia. Todos aquí somos familia. Y así vamos a luchar todo lo que se tenga que hacer contra las injusticias que han sufrido nuestra familia, la familia de Enrique y todos los soldados, mujeres y hombres, nuestros jóvenes bellos que tienen sueños de un mejor mañana y se los llevan y los tiran como que si no fueran nada. Pero para nosotros sí son algo, son nuestros sueños, son nuestro futuro como pueblo y queremos que eso se respete. Ya basta de tanta injusticia, ya basta que nos traten así el ejército y las fuerzas militares de los Estados Unidos. Si nos van a llevar a nosotros, que nos enseñen ese respeto que nos deben. Porque estas tierras nos las robaron. Nos deberían enseñar algo de respeto y tener algo de dignidad. Pero sabemos que eso no va a pasar. No va a pasar si ellos no sienten la presión de un pueblo organizado. Por eso es importante que vean esto que estamos haciendo aquí. Nos estamos organizando porque con la organización viene el poder. Y así van a oír la voz de nuestro pueblo a demandar, no pedir, demandar justicia para Enrique Roman Martinez y demandar justicia para todos nuestros jóvenes que se han llevado. Gracias.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Alex Villapando, estoy con la coalición para el control comunitario de la policía. Estamos aquí en apoyo de la familia de Enrique Roman Martinez, que brutalmente fue asesinado por sus supuestos compañeros y camaradas del ejército. Estamos aquí en apoyo como comunidad con esta familia porque, como dijo el compañero anteriormente, esto es un asalto no solo a esa familia, no solo a ese muchacho, sino a nosotros como comunidad. Uno no tiene que estar conectado biológicamente con la gente para sentir el dolor y el asalto y el trauma que los han causado estas instituciones que nos han usado y destrozado nuestras vidas y las vidas de muchas gentes en el mundo. De un lado de la pistola al otro. Entonces estoy aquí para demostrar mi apoyo y el apoyo de la organización a esta familia para que ellos puedan tener un poco de calma. Yo sé que esa calma no es algo que se puede solo con una condena de prisión a estas personas porque el muchacho no regresa. Pero lo que sí tenemos son demandas de la comunidad. Las demandas que la señora Mollie Bell iba a decir, las voy a repetir yo en español. Nosotros como comunidad demandamos respuestas y que respondan el comandante de la base del ejército de Ft.Bragg. Demandamos respuestas del Army SID y demandamos respuestas y que respondan y se hagan responsable el ejército de los Estados Unidos con el liderazgo que tengan. Esas son las demandas que tenemos. Y otra vez repito, estos asaltos, como cuando la policía mata a nuestra gente en estas comunidades, son asaltos a todas nuestras comunidades. No solo a la familia que tiene que pensar de sus personas desaparecidas. Esas ilusiones, señora, para la mamá de Enrique, le doy mi corazón, mi apoyo. Y aquí estamos con usted, en espíritu, conectados. No está sola. Y aquí también lo que queremos decir es que cualquier persona de nuestras comunidades, sea que habla español o inglés o lo que sea, que se unan a estas familias. Porque el apoyo y la unión, eso es lo que dice el compañero, hace la fuerza. Estas cosas destrozan a nuestras almas. No solo mataron a Enrique, están matando poco a poco a su mamá, a su familia. Y eso no es justo. Cuando vienen a prometer, cuando vienen con todas esas promesas a nuestras comunidades vulnerables, buscando opciones para un futuro mejor, vienen con todas las promesas, todos los arcoíris. Pero ¿Qué pasa cuando nos dañan? ¿Dónde está la justicia? ¿Dónde está la reparación? Y como dijo la hermana de Enrique, ¿cómo se le puede continuar a creer a que este país es un país de justicia? Cuando tanta injusticia fue la base de la creación de este país. Y la injusticia sigue y sigue. Y los que sufren son las personas olvidadas. Pero aquí estamos como comunidad a decir que no nos olvidamos de nuestra gente. Nosotros nos miramos y nosotros nos apoyamos. Muchas gracias y justicia para Enrique. Alejandro Villapando.
All right, we'll take your questions at this time.
Ahorita vamos a tomar sus preguntas.
Supongo que lo que están pidiendo es que las autoridades federales se encarguen de una nueva investigación.
Sí, ahorita lo que estamos pidiendo es que el Departamento de Justicia y el FBI tome cargo de esa investigación y que le quite el cargo al Army para que tengamos una investigación que sea justa y que sea una investigación que tome en cuenta todo, no nomás por interés del Army.
Los cargos que enfrentaron las personas que estaban con él no son directamente vinculados a su muerte, según estaba leyendo.
¿Puedes repetir?
Los cargos que enfrentaron las personas que estaban con él no están directamente vinculados a su muerte.
Háblenos sobre los cargos.
There are none directly connected to homicide at this time. Most of the charges relate in some way or form to giving a false statement to the investigators. For example, all 7 of the soldiers that were on the trip with Enrique have been charged with a conspiracy to give a false official statement about the presence of Miss Coachelle. I forget what her rank is, but the Alex Becerra's girlfriend was on the trip. Which obviously begs the question of why they all coordinated to conceal her presence on the trip. It's quite suspicious, obviously. Several of them have been charged with individual false statements, including false statements about drug use during the trip. And then there are a couple direct drug charges against a few of the individuals. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it's not anything that has to do with the case.
No, like I said earlier, the Army had led us to believe for a year that they had these charges waiting in the wings, that they would use them as leverage to try and flip somebody on the homicide side, natural prosecutorial step. And then they led us to believe they weren't going to do that. Now they've sort of done it, but they also tell me that the homicide case remains closed, and that they're not optimistic that anybody's going to flip, which tells me that somebody's afraid. And what are they afraid of? Probably the person that decapitated Enrique.
Yes.
You think you killed your brother as a Latino from Chilling Hills while you waited 2 years for any answer?
I think that it's a lot easier. Let's say, for example, Gabby Petito. Poor, I am not taking away from her at all whatsoever, you know. Even Vanessa Guillen, I don't want to take away from them whatsoever. What happened to them was awful, you know. But my brother was, you know, Hispanic male, didn't look, you know, anything out of the ordinary. I love my brother, but wasn't extraordinarily handsome or anything, you know. Wasn't really worthy as much, you know. A lot of people, I guess, would overlook my brother, right? Like someone said, one of the forgotten ones. And I think it took 2 years. They were hoping that we would just take it. We would just sit back and we would just let it die out. But they were wrong. They were wrong.
Quick in Spanish, can you say that?
Yes. Sobre si fue por mi hermano, no le quiero quitar nada a la muchacha Gabby Petito ni a Vanessa Guillen, pero mi hermano no fue alguien, ay, sí tan guapo, no soy mala. Para mí mi hermano fue guapo, pero para otros, muchos otros a lo mejor no. Como dijo alguien anteriormente, uno de los olvidados, ¿verdad? Yo siento que el Army pensó que yo y mi familia nos íbamos equivocaron ahí, aunque mi hermano no sea el más guapo de todo el mundo, él tiene algo más y es una familia que realmente lo quiere mucho.
Y esa teoría de que quería acabar con su vida, creo que tú has hablado de eso.
Sí, mi hermano, mi hermano quería mucho a la gente y él siempre estuvo ahí para la gente, para oír de su día, qué necesitan alguien con platicar. A mi hermano le interesaban mucho los mental illness, que la depresión, la ansiedad, todo eso. Y él quería ser un psicólogo que hacía medicinas. Entonces, de mucho de su niñez, él miraba las historias, los que salían, que ahora hay esta nueva medicina, y él había visto que hallucinogenics eran algo que estaban tratando de hacer en psicología para arreglar a la gente que sufría por depresión o ansiedad, OCD o bipolar disorder y todo eso. So, él es lo que quería hacer mi hermano, él quería ayudar al mundo.
Una pregunta más. Ya se va a hacer la última. Si ya no hay más preguntas, tenemos una persona de la comunidad que quería dar sus últimos comentarios y ya vamos a cerrar la información.
And I'm the director of American Indian Movement of Southern California. I want to acknowledge that we are on Quiche land in the village of Yagna, where our ancestors have walked for thousands of years. I want to thank the people that came out today in support of Enrique Roman Martinez and the Martinez family. I became involved with his family shortly after Enrique's death made the news. I was very heartbroken over what happened, and it hit me especially hard because I found out that they only lived a few miles from my family home in Pomona. They were in Chino. And upon hearing and reading the story, my 93-year-old father, who was also a member of the 82nd Airborne back in the 40s, was deeply hurt and saddened and bothered by the story. He recalled back in 1947 when he was stationed in Biloxi, Mississippi. There were only 3 people of color, 3 brown people in his unit. And one day when they went out in the field and returned to their barracks, someone had hung a noose over their doorway. They were pretty frightened because of the prejudices against their kind. And when they reported it to their commanding officer, the commanding officer just laughed in their face and said, "Oh, I'm sure it was just a joke." But was it? To this day, my father is still haunted by that. And he wonders, who was that noose meant for? Which one of us was going to die that day? He asked me to go over to the Martinez family and purchase one of their t-shirts for him. The one with Enrique in his uniform, the one we used to make the buttons with today. And my father has that t-shirt and looks at it all the time. And I'm sure he prays for Enrique and his family, because he felt that scared feeling that Enrique must have felt when he knew something was going to happen to him. So this story is something that occurs more often than we all know. Our servicemen and women go through this constantly. And how many commanding officers laugh in their face and say it was a joke? How many are left there wondering, am I next? This has to stop in the military. We all have to fight for Enrique and for all the others who are missing, who have been murdered and their cases have gone unresolved or called a suicide. Missing, and they believe that they're just AWOL or out partying or did this to themselves. And so, with that being told, American Indian Movement of Southern California, in conjunction with Rumsenama Turatai Oloni, will be launching a movement, hashtag MMIS, Missing Murdered Indigenous Soldiers. We will be fighting for all our indigenous people to get answers. We will work hard, as we have on so many other movements. We will be there for families, the Martinez, the Guillens, the Cheese, and all the others that have so many unanswered questions. And we will be there. Call us. We're here for you. We stand in solidarity. Ehe, shururu, ino la pista, ime, kaukukai.
Thank you all for being here today. This concludes our press conference. You can all collect your